Thank you so much for doing this. I'm very excited to chat with you about your work. And first, if you can just kind of give an intro to yourself and tell us who you are and what you do in your own words.
Yeah, I am Naima Green, and I am an artist and photographer. And well, right now, I think I'm trying to readjust to think about like what my practice looks like in this moment, because throughout COVID and even still mostly quarantine, just so much of my work and what I'm passionate about is people and my relationships, and um, making portraits and being in other people's spaces. And and so I've just been thinking a lot about what forms the things that I love to do have to take when we can't really be close to people.
I know prior to COVID and, lockdown, quarantine in New York, you were the artist in residence at Recess in Brooklyn, and you were working on a continuation of Pursuit, which is a deck of cards you made using photographs that you took of queer women, trans folks, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people. And, before your time was cut short due to the virus, I'm curious about what your experience was of making photographs in that new space. And I'm also curious, because of our current moment, where you see the continuation of this work going and what you envision for it.
With Pursuit, before the virus, I was scheduled to make about 100 portraits for the archive. And so right now, the project exists as the deck of playing cards, and not all the portraits that I made in 2018 and 19 are in that deck. And so I really wanted to think about a way of including everyone, but also providing more nuance and more complexity and more information to the people who sat and participated in the work. So my time at Recess was supposed to be portrait making and programming, and the space is kind of mapped out in 3 different sections. And so in the back is the photo studio, and then there's 2 areas of kind of reading room with soft seating and lots of floor pillows and books and plants, and just a really warm, wanting to create a really warm and inviting space for people and for the public just to be and to feel like an art space could be a space that's comfortable and that is supportive to the body. And I think that that's something I've been thinking a lot about recently, or for a long time, just going to museums and feeling like, oh, I really want to linger with this artwork, or I really want to linger with this piece, but I can't because this bench hurts, or I have to keep walking, or, just it doesn't feel like a place for my body to be. And so I wanted Recess to be a place where people could just come, anyone could come and be.
Yeah, I feel like in a lot of your work, you're aiming to create a world you don't see represented so often publicly. Like you're making it for yourself and for your community, whether that's photographing Black or brown bodies in nature, like you did in Jules from the Hinterland, or shooting queer folks, to kind of re-image what queerness looks like for yourself and for your community. And there's something that Dina Hagag said, who's someone that you photographed, and she said, you make your sitter feel like they're part of something bigger while simultaneously making you feel exactly like yourself. And I thought that was such a beautiful way to sum up your approach to portrait making. And yeah, your work is so much about community and where people find comfort. So I'm curious about how you would define home and what that means to you.
Yeah. Also love Dina. She's very generous. I think home is so important on so many levels, but I think when designing sets, I mean, so Pursuit was my first time working in the studio, really. Like, I like working outside. And I think even in the outdoors and in natural light, like, I'm able to feel a sense of home in a place that I'm just showing up to for the first time. Or it's like I enter a space or enter a park and I'm like, I'm really drawn to that area or that tree or that nook or whatever. And then that kind of becomes a place where I'm like, okay, this is the place where I've decided to like rest for now. And it's not about like taking it with me or taking over that space, but just like a way of like relaxing into something and relaxing into an environment. Yeah, just thinking about home as a place where I can, yes, take care of myself, but also take care of the people I love, or a space for play, a space for pleasure, a space for indulging, a space for parties and connecting. And but also I think what I am feeling lately is that the home can also be a place that moves in robes and can be a pop-up kind of, if you will, you know. And that feels really freeing. I think for a long time I felt like, oh well, this apartment in Brooklyn is like the only home that I have, but that's not true. And so I think in moving and in letting it go, it freed up a lot. I mean, it's also very recent. Like I just moved maybe less than 2 weeks ago. But it definitely has freed up a lot of space to think about like what else could be, or what other spaces feel really good to be in. So home is all of that and more.
Yeah, and I feel like through your emphasis on home and community building, you really create a space that feels safe to people and they feel seen and don't feel the need to like explain themselves. And so, yeah, I'm curious about the role that intimacy plays in your work, and particularly how you're creating intimacy and safety with subjects in the light of what has happened thus far in 2020.
Well, now it's interesting because intimacy means distance in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's just been a really interesting exercise. And I think even in seeing people like in the park or things like that, it's still, we might be closer, we might be like physically closer, but there still is a built-in distance. There's, you know, like the barrier of the mask, the barrier of 6 feet, like there are so many barriers, but also to feel so close to so many people, even in this time, feels really special to me. And I think is a reminder that not only in my work, but in my life, which really are the same, that I don't have to worry about the relationships that I've built, and that even if there is distance or even if there is a pandemic, that like the relationships and the core things that bring us together outlast everything else that's going on. And so that feels really special and really beautiful. And I think in trying to make space for people to feel, you know, free and like they have the ability to really show up and be themselves. I think a lot of that with making portraits begins with like the ask and the language, even just in reaching out to someone, and then it continues through the entire experience of like when you come to the studio or when I meet you for a portrait, it's like I'm would treat someone the same way I would treat them if I was inviting them over. So it's like, do you want water? Do you want tea? Do you want to sit down? Do you need to change? Do you, just like making sure that when you come to me, like even if you had a terrible, terrible day or someone harassed you on the train or whatever it might be, that like we're both able to put down whatever bullshit is going on and to like step together to create something that feels safe and comfortable and fun and enjoyable and like it's not too much work.
We love to ask, Memory Foam loves to ask at the end of all of our interviews about if you can share 3 things that have brought you joy recently during this time, or that have been getting you through the day lately.
I meditate most days twice a day, so that brings me a lot of joy and relief. And music brings me a lot of joy. I recently found a playlist that I made in high school, and have been listening to that, and it's like a lot of Jadakiss, a lot of Shine, a lot of like early Jay-Z, and basically all the like rap heavy hitters, and that's been so fun to remember. I used to print out lyrics and like study them like it was my homework. And so I feel like because of that, I can remember song lyrics so easily. And so to listen to this music that I like still listen to, but not in the same way, and to still remember like all of the, the melodies and the lines, that's been really fun. Cooking has been bringing me a lot of joy, and realizing that throughout this time that I'm far more self-sufficient, I think, than I realized, and that like I really can make everything that I need.